future. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Yes, it's a little dark this morning. There we go. Got my light on now. Slowly making my way back into the world of the Friday Politics Roundup. Yes, indeed. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. It is Friday, December 8th, 2023. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Friday Politics Roundup. Yes, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Each week we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can help support this show becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress for all the details. And you can help out the show right now by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time that we go live. And if you're one of our awesome podcast listeners, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen on. And let other folks know why you like the show. Leave a little comment over there. Yeah, little things like this help other people find the show. On today's podcast, oh God, a little loud there. Looks like got to bring that level down a little bit here. There we go. On today's show, well, I'll just give you a kind of a return to broadcast kind of day. Talk a little about some stuff that's in the news. Talk a little bit about, I don't know, how you feeling after these elections. I know it's been a while. Let you know some programs we got coming up. Check in with you. What's going on in your neck of the woods? How you feeling about stuff? Ready for the holidays? We shall see. Look, for more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to his podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Go to thericksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind that podcast rock the house, and they know where the bodies are buried. Make sure to follow them at Twitter at the Night Caucus. That's at the Night Caucus on Twitter or X. And subscribe to their podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. I got to get that Anchor out of my little show notes there because Anchor no longer really exists. It has now just been subsumed by Spotify. And if you haven't heard, The Signal is a new podcast from the Bucks County Beacon. The Signal is hosted by the Beacon's editor-in-chief, Cyril Michaleko, and is produced by yours truly. Twice a month, The Signal will shine a light on the right-wing extremist currents streaming through Bucks County and beyond. Cyril invites guests who can provide insight, analysis, and organizing solutions so that we can steer the community toward calmer, saner, progressive routes. Check out at the buckscountybeacon.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcast. And also check out The Civic Circle. Yes, The Civic Circle is a podcast also from the Bucks County Beacon that tackles politics and policy from a Gen Z lens. Sarah Zhang, Mallory Marzin, and Alexandra Coffey are students from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and once a month they chat about activism, advocacy, and the political happenings affecting their generation today. Check out their podcast at civiccircle.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcast. And all you gamers out there, look, holidays are right upon us. And I'll tell you, the Game Inn, that's with two N's. The Game Inn is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything from retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, walls of Funko Pops, and good grades on report cards. Get your kids discounts, too. Check it out. Got a question about a game, look for something hard to get, they've got you covered. Check them out at their Facebook page or follow them on the formerly named place called Twitter. At the Game Inn, that's with two N's. And shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. And if you find yourself in the Kutztown area this holiday season, You got to check out the Heart and Hearth Deli and Smokehouse. Yes, that is located at 466 West Main Street. That is kitty corner from the Kutztown University campus. The Heart and Hearth is an American bistro featuring barbecue and French-inspired fare, all with locally sourced and organic ingredients. And you get in there, you got to say hello to Colleen. She's the owner. She is a friend. She is awesome, and her food is mwah. Go check them out. The Heart and Hearth Deli and Smokehouse, located at 466 West Main Street in Kutztown. A special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at @SongADayMan. That's @SongADayMan on Twitter. Well, we are back in the seat here. And we've got a new show coming up for you on Out to Coop Live on Monday. Yes, this Monday, December 11th at 7 p.m. I welcome Adrian King and Ashley Gillis Perkins to the show. We'll be talking about the discrimination complaint they filed against the Penridge School District with the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Education. Ashley Gillis Perkins is a staff attorney with the Educational Law Center, and Adrian King is, of course, founder and president of the Pair Up Society and a parent of two kids in the Penridge School District. We'll be digging into their decision to file this complaint, the long history of discrimination in the Penridge School District, and what things may look like going forward with the newly elected school board members. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. And look, everybody, if you want progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress. We're here for the fight, and we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement and the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, welcome and good morning, everybody. As you can hear, my voice, hey, Emily, good morning. My voice is still not quite up to par. For those of you who don't know, I mentioned this, I think, on one of the shows when I first came back, but I got COVID over Thanksgiving. And here's the funny story, right, if you will. So I had to go, I was trying to kind of make sure I was kind of ticking all the boxes. I've let people on the show know before. I had last summer I had kind of a blood clot in my leg, and it was complicated for a bunch of series of other stuff. And so it's been quite a kind of medical year, let's say. Everything's good now with all that and everything like this, but it's been one of those things. I'm at the age where things start breaking down. So I want to make sure that I'm following up with doctors and all this other stuff. Anyways, so I had this appointment that I said, well, you know what? I better get this done before we go on vacation, just so that it's, that's done, because I know it's going to have a follow-up, and there's going to be a follow-up, and blah, 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 blah. So I schedule the appointment. I go into the appointment, and there's a nurse that, basically comes in and does your check-in and all that stuff. And then she sneezes and starts coughing really bad and says, oh, no, don't worry, it's just a head cold, and goes out in the hallway and starts hacking her lungs out, right? Comes back in, finishes up, intake or whatever. 2 days after that, one day, hey, Amy, good morning. And one day before we're supposed to leave to go to Florida for the Thanksgiving vacation. It's a vacation that we put off from last year, because last year my son and then myself got the flu, so we had to cancel it and postpone it for a year. So, of course, the night before we're supposed to leave, I test positive for COVID. And but after I encouraged my family, as just please go. Do not, like, the kids have been so disappointed. We're going with my brother and sister-in-law, my niece and stuff. So it was kind of like a big deal. So I was like, please go. And they're like, we don't want to leave you. I'm like, I don't want to be left, but you better go. So they went. I did not have that bad of a case. And just kind of really took it easy for the week. Funny thing was, toward the end, the last like 3 days or 4 days of when I was still testing positive, is like when I really started getting congested and short of breath and that kind of stuff. But anyways, long story short, kept testing positive for a while, and this thing kind of just hung on. And of course, after Thanksgiving, it's the last 2 weeks of my semester, so it just was So I went back with a mask and all that stuff after I was testing negative, all that kind of thing. But it's still not kind of whatever all cleared out. I feel fine, right? My head's clear and all that kind of stuff. It's just all the congestion stuff is still lingering and all that kind of thing. So I apologize that it's taken me a bit to kind of get back in the swing of things. But I was literally, was going to do a show this past Monday, because this past Monday was the swearing in of the new school board and at Penridge, right? So, and they had it at 6:00, which I was psyched about because it was like, oh, 6:00 is a swearing in. We'll go to the swearing in and then come back and get to talk about it, right? On the show. But I was, again, my my voice was cracking. I was like, Siri could just. So I was like, I better just get a good night's sleep, and that's what I did. So, anyways, I go back to my follow-up appointment with that doctor, right? And I go back in, and the person I'm supposed to meet with, what is not there that day. So I said, oh, well, you know what? It's okay. We can actually have one of the nurses can take care of you. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. So go ahead, sit down, and guess who it is? It's the same nurse once again. And I'm sitting there, and I'm, I've got my mask on still. This was the kind of the week after Thanksgiving, even though I was testing negative. Want to make sure, look, I'm going into this place. I better, make sure. I had called ahead of time just to make sure, listen, I had COVID. Should I still come in for the appointment? And they said, yes, please come in. That shouldn't be a problem. Just wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. So it's fine. So I do that. I'm sitting there talking to this nurse, and she's like, yeah, how you doing? I got my mask on. I said, yeah. I said, I had called. She was like, oh, yeah. I said, well, thanks you for being able to take me today. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come in because I had COVID over Thanksgiving, so I'm still having my mask on. I want to make sure it was okay. And I just had COVID and I'm just getting over it. She's like, oh, yeah? Wow, that's funny. Me too. Right? And I'm looking at her like, well, at least that's a confirmation about, where it goes on. And so I just say to her, yeah, yep. Got it over Thanksgiving. My whole family got to go to Florida without me, and I was kind of sat home because of COVID. And you watch it dawning on her face, right? And like in my mind, to be honest with you, I'm like past it at this point. I'm like, I'm moving on. Nothing I can do. That really sucked, but whatever. I'm not going back to refight that thing, but I'm just going to let it sink in and just get out of here. So that was my story. And then, to make matters worse, right, we had like this kind of stuff that like ran through my house. Luckily, my wife ended up getting COVID, but like when she got back, and we don't think it was probably from me, but we're not sure. And then my son has had this like stomach bug for the week, and it's the end of my semester, so all the grades and all the meetings are coming in. So I've just been swamped. So that's the long story short, right? Basically of why it's taken me so long to kind of get back in the swing of things. I hope you got to check out, I don't know if you haven't already, to check out the latest episode of the Civic Circle that's, comes out from the Bucks County Beacon, the Civic Circles, that kind of Gen Z focused podcast. The latest episode that came out, we interviewed Jordan Adelson, or they interviewed Jordan Adelson. And I was very, very excited that it was it was able to come out when it did, and that we were able to put it out, and it was such a great interview, and wanted to get that out before the Monday night, because Monday night was the swearing in at Penridge, and Jordan Jordan was the communication director for Bucks United, and she had talked kind of a fair amount about the Penridge School Board. So who knows it? Killing my voice right now. I'm just like, oh, this is bad. Yes, Amy, I agree. I need an assistant. I think. Well, you know what? I should say this about this. I mentioned this on a previous podcast, and I've been thinking a lot about like directions forward for what I'm going to be doing with Raging Chicken, and I'll probably be posting some about this to the Patreon site. The one thing I'm very excited about with our Patreon site is Patreon just started doing this thing where you can follow different creators without having to become a member, which is very helpful in just kind of building up kind of another kind of area of listeners. So we've got a whole bunch of new followers on Patreon, which is great. It'd be awesome if we got more, actually patrons, right? Paying patrons. That'd be even better because then we could do some of the things we wanted to do. But some of the work that I've been doing has been helping build a little bit stuff with Raging Chicken. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing probably the month of December into January is consolidating a bunch of the work that we do. You may or may not know if you're listening to this podcast right now, but we started out having a web page that was mostly kind of writing based. We started that back in 2011. It wasn't in 2016 until 2016 that we started the podcast, and we were running both of those things for quite some time. And the company that I have for my web hosting decided to switch over its servers. This was during COVID at some point. I think it was probably 2022. Switch over their servers to kind of to like a cloud-based server system, which is going to allow it to be faster according to them and all this stuff. On my end, I had to do a few things with the switching some things. Apparently, I did not do that correctly at some point, and as a result, if you go to that webpage now, ragingchickenpress.org, it comes up as an error page. So I've got to fix that, and and instead of saying, look, instead of putting more money into a web page that we really kind of don't utilize anymore, I'm probably going to consolidate that stuff over to our Patreon site, which is kind of goes to Amy, your point, but I need an assistant. That's really what I'm really trying to kind of grapple with, right? Come to, that's my realization that I can't be managing all these sites. There's just no way to do it when I'm doing it by myself. So we're going to probably consolidate things a little bit over on the Patreon site, and then trying to produce some more content. Because the other thing I've been wanting to do is there's a bunch of writing I've been wanting to do, and I think that's going to be a place I'm going to start posting some things up on Patreon. Most likely that stuff will come out initially as that'll come out initially as patron only, right? But then it'll release like a week or so later there, and we shall see. So anyways, that's going to be happening over the holiday season. In addition to just finishing projects that I need to get done for here. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I really enjoyed doing, you may have seen, is that we had our first community intern. Technically, she wasn't the first, but she was the first one who actually we that functioned as an intern. Let's put it that way. I agreed to take on some interns before. It didn't work out so great. But Ava Lobach was our community intern with Raging Chicken. And she was awesome and was able to write a bunch of stuff. We kind of paired up with the Bucks County Beacon. So the interviews that I was doing on Out to Coop Live on Monday nights, she was doing kind of like articles based upon that and posting that stuff in the Beacon. It was fantastic. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've wanted to do for, well, actually not even wanted to do for a long time, but the whole original idea behind Raging Chicken was that it was also going to be a space for developing kind of young, I shouldn't say just young writers. I'd say writers who are new to doing this kind of work, right? And not just writers, but also people working, say, photography and video, podcasting, all that stuff. But people who wanted to work in the progressive media space, but really just, there's not a lot of places where you can get to do this stuff. So that was kind of the original idea. We had a fellowship program that we worked for a while, that we had some college fellows that were, by kind of a semester basis. We had a couple that were great. We had a couple that were just took the money and run, so to speak. But I think that given the fact that our focus has primarily been this podcast, or these series of podcasts, now that I'm doing more production work with the Bucks County Beacon, got some other things kind of stirring up, work well with this internship thing. I think we've got some models to actually do more than just the podcast, right? To actually be, for me personally, to do some more of the writing based on Patreon. but also kind of work in conjunction with some of the other progressive media outlets in the area, maybe as a clearinghouse with interns, with kind of interns that we could kind of work through. I got a bunch of ideas like that. So I've also been, and this kind of always been streaming in the back of my head. Several years ago, this is before COVID even, I actually started a nonprofit organization called, excuse me. Yeah, this is what it's been like. A nonprofit organization called the, sorry, hold on a second. Called the Citizen Media Center, right? And Citizen Media Center was meant to be kind of like a hub, like a physical space and a hub to do a lot of the stuff I was just kind of describing, for a bunch of reasons that had more to do with people going in different directions, right as we were kind of starting to launch some really, I think, onerous insurance policies that I was forced to take on because I was going through this one particular agency, and because there was a possibility of working with college students that in a physical space. They made me take on this like really expensive insurance policy and stuff. And anyways, then with some of the board of directors that kind of went off, and one went to a PhD program, and the one had to kind of take on the second job, things like this. It just was not going to happen. But the idea behind it is still there. I've always thought about Raging Chicken as really being a kind of space into that. And I've always kind of envisioned a lot of the work that I would do long-term would be kind of building these kind of connections. So I've been thinking a lot about that. And I think by having stuff in that consolidated space on Patreon is going to be helpful. Yeah, Emily, that's a little bit kind of the idea. The other thing is, the other reason about consolidating things on Patreon, to be honest with you too, is that, Twitter/X is a shit show. It is not. It is. I don't want to kind of sound nostalgic with saying it's not what it used to be. That is absolutely 100% true. Right. But more to the point is like, again, there are people who are really got tons and tons of Twitter followers and are active on Twitter all the time and have been, right, as back and forth. Sean Kitchen, who I, worked with Raging Chicken for years before he went off to Harrisburg. Now he works at the Keystone Report, the news agency out of Harrisburg. But, he's one of those perfect example. He was on Twitter all the time and things like this, and that's kind of what he did. I've never been that kind of personally active, like on Twitter or even Facebook to some degree. I mean, I was for a while, I think, but I've utilized those spaces mostly from Raging Chicken's perspective, right? From, kind of wanting to kind of engage through Raging Chicken. And what was always awesome about it is like, as I thank everybody who shares our stuff and all this kind of, it's been great. People have been amazing and helping promote this show and the stuff that we're doing Raging Chicken, sharing great materials and all that. It's been fantastic. And to a certain degree, that was always we're going to get traffic to our podcasts and things like this through those social media platforms. Twitter is such a shit show that there's nothing you can count on any longer in terms of like your stuff even showing up on your own followers feeds. The analytics are a disaster. And if you talk to anybody who works in progressive media, any media for that matter, but mostly progressive media, Twitter has really fallen off as a place to be. The threads, the alternatives, we're on Threads too as well. We're on Mastodon too as well. And just recently got on Blue Sky, thanks to the awesome folks of the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast who finally threw, threw me an invitation. I finally found somebody who had them. Like they were saying, "Hey, look, we got some extra invitations. Everybody wants them." I'm like, "Yes, please!" And they were like, "Boom, there you go." So we're on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is probably the best Twitter rival that's out there. But look, I mean, it's hard to get on, right? You need an invite and stuff. Over the long term, that might prove useful. But look, frankly, I do this work not to chase analytics, right? To chase the likes and to, to have great takes on everything. That's just not me, right? I'm not knocking that, right? I'm just saying that's just not me, right? I look at it so much as as a space to share kind of the work that we're doing. So without having a really kind of clear alternative, like, Emily says, yeah, Blue Sky is still niche, but I like it. Yes, I agree. I'm right with you on that. But I'm looking for a place where we actually build community online. Mastodon was, that was kind of the idea behind Mastodon, right? And it still is very much. I mean, if you're looking to build kind of communities of like-minded people and have kind of discussions without all the kind of, without all the hellscape that was Twitter, and just have people that are really interested in building community, it's a great space, right? It is not a space, however, to kind of share, and kind of expand your membership unless you spend a lot of time there. And it's like, I just don't have that time, right? If we had, like Amy was saying, like need an assistant, like if I had somebody who was just running my social media, right, doing all the time, that's awesome. I mean, Sean Kitchen for a long time kind of did that for Raging Chicken. But he used to be RC Press Sean. That used to be Sean, right? But he's long moved on from that. Anyways, so that's just kind of some of the stuff that's been going through my mind. And frankly, I also got to say, Kirsten, what's happening? The other stuff, frankly, the other thing I have to say is that let me just talk a little bit about the Pembridge School Board, not just the election, but the swearing-in ceremony on Monday. I know Central Bucks had theirs too as well, right? And just like at Central Bucks, I mean, Central Bucks got a lot of coverage, but just like Central Bucks, there was tailgating that was going on at in the Pembridge high school parking lot ahead of the meeting, which was phenomenal. Once again, a huge shout out to everybody who worked on that campaign. Huge shout out to I could just go through the list of names, and I think I'm going to do that before the end of the year. I'm not going to do it today because I don't have it up in front of me and I don't want to miss anybody, but all the folks that worked, with the Pembridge Community Alliance, the folks that worked with, the amazing work that the Ridge Network did, the amazing work that even, Bucks United did, the folks, even the Pembridge Democrats. I mean, I'll tell you, the group of people that have run the Pembridge Democrats through the thin years, right? Well, especially when they weren't doing anything, they have really started to build that back up as a community, which has been pretty amazing. I just, all these people that are going through my mind that did all this organizational work, and not just for this past election, but have been building that organization for years now, right? At least 3 election cycles, right? When they first were trying to figure out how do we actually run a different kind of campaign? How do we recruit good candidates and all that? The big thing, my big takeaway from Monday night's swearing in ceremony in Pembridge was just how good it felt, how much of a relief it was. And I don't think I realized quite how much what was happening in the school district was weighing on me, to be honest with you. I felt, it's only like this week I've giving it some thought, and again, it helps. This is the one thing that's useful about, having to commute an hour back and forth to work. So you get time to think in the car, right? And, I felt, I'll be honest with you, I felt in this really stuck place because there was part of me that wanted to just get the hell out of here, right? And feel like that, I was failing my kids, by, having moved here. And one of the reasons I moved here was, because, okay, yes, we're moving closer to my wife's family, but also because look, we're going to have, when we moved here, my wife was pregnant with our first kid, and we wanted to make sure that we wanted to stay someplace for a long time. We didn't want to move all around and stuff. We wanted someplace that we would stay, a community that we liked, and it had decent schools, and that was all, hit all the boxes, and we knew it was, obviously knew it was a more conservative area and stuff, but look, you do what you do. We had family here and stuff. So, but it really was troubling to me, it was really troubling about, am I doing my, kids a disservice by staying, then of course there's also, that political voice in my head, which is always, no, you always stay and fight. You always stay and fight, right? You always stay and you try to make things better, right? It's like the flip side, it's not like those people used to say, love it or leave it. I always say, so it was in high school, I would say, no, I'd rather choose to stay and make it better rather than just get up and, take my toys and go home. But nonetheless, I'd had those voices in my head, and there's like other people, you'd hear them, well, I'm going to take my kids out of here. And I don't know, it just didn't seem right. So, but it had been weighing on me quite so much. And then plus, to be honest with you, the other part of it was, like I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, is that, I had all this kind of health stuff to deal with this year. And that was weighing on my mind a lot. And I don't think I realized until probably October of this, October, that I was just significantly burnt out for a lot of reasons. And the school board stuff kind of tipped me over the edge in a weird kind of way. I mean, in a way that I'm not used to. It's not familiar to me. I mean, normally, and I'll be honest with you, normally if this was happening, most times in my life with these crazies taking over the school board, I would have been one of the people out there being at the, on the organizing committees and things like this. And that would have been what I was doing. And I couldn't do it. Right. And it was a very strange experience. So, I mean, obviously it helped in other ways, right? We do the show, right? I contributed in other ways that I could. In ways that I kind of, said, okay, I need to do something to help this out, even if it's a small thing. So I would do those things. But so it was just a weird space. This whole past year has been a weird space, and that great. And so going to that meeting on Monday, I felt I've always, again, my friend Seth, I remember this when years ago, when this is 2016, when we had to take in our union, we had to take a strike vote. We had to, it was going to be, and it was pretty clear that if we took a strike vote, that we were actually going to strike. Right? This is a strike authorization vote, I should say. That we were actually going to strike. They called a special session of legislative assembly, our legislative assembly and our union, which was basically all the representatives across the state from all the different campuses in the state system of higher education, called a special session at Penn State, because that's right in the center of the state. And literally, we were going to convene for a day, less than a day, really. Go in, convene, take the vote, and that was it. That was the business of the day. And yet, virtually everybody went, right? I had to figure something out. My son came with me and brought him a bunch of toys. We drove out to Penn State to the hotel where the vote was going to be taken, and took the vote, right? Got back on the car and drove home, right? We went and got food and things like that. But, it was that kind of thing. And I remember because it felt important to me to be there, And I remember my friend Seth saying to me, like, why are you going out there? You can just send your vote. And I said, yeah, but I just feel it needs to be. He was like, yeah, I don't feel the need to have to be there. Right? But for me, that's always been kind of important, right? These kind of key pivotal moments. And that's the way Monday felt. It felt like to be there to bear witness, right? And I didn't realize how great it was going to be. It was so positive. Even you had Jordan Blomgren, who, I've talked about extensively on this show. Jordan Blomgren, one of the kind of, she was the one who recruited, took care, got the secret contracts and all that stuff to bring Vermilion Education aboard at Penridge. That was like, she was the one. She was vicious to people. She was belittling to, both people in the community and other members of the board. She was just the kind of toxicity she would bring to every single meeting. Just like, oh my God, it was overwhelming. And yes, I'm not saying she was the only one. Megan Banas Clemens clearly was in that same camp. Ricky Chaikin was still in that. Although it was funny, interesting over the months, she got quieter and quieter because I think she realized like she actually still wants to like maybe be able to say hello to people in the future. I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. But anyways, so you now got a new school board majority. You got, all the Democrats won, right? So there were 5 open seats, 5 won. And now Jordan Blomgren and Ricky Chaikin are the only 2 left over from the extremists, right? They're the only 2 ones that are there. And then there's, of course, the lapdog guy who just votes along with them, but doesn't really say anything of value. But Jordan Blomgren, she, despite that really positive feeling, she tried to bring the toxicity. Like she showed up in her big, like flag scarf and stuff, was wagging her head around and things, but it had no place to go, right? Because she tried to turn what everyone was there. I won't say everyone, but I would say probably 95% of that packed room where people were there to support the new school board candidates in the new majority. And there's only one person that got up in public comment and spoke. And I have no idea what that guy's politics were. I've never seen it before. But what he called for is like, can we please, I don't care what your politics are, can we please get back to a situation where people are going to do the best for our community and for our schools and for the kids in the schools? Right. And check your kind of political agendas at the door and let's get back to the business of making this thing because we care about this community and so on. Right. That was kind of his shtick. And I think that the vast majority of people who elected this new school board, these new school board candidates and this new school board majority, that's really what bound everyone together. And I don't normally think in these terms, right? And this is what I've been evaluating a lot of is the importance of a truly democratic process that is dependent upon difference, but also collaboration and critical compromise, right? And by critical compromise, I really don't like the way that people deploy the word compromise very often because usually it's meant to kind of shut down people. Well, you have to compromise is usually when people say that, when you have to compromise, usually what they mean is that you are not going to get your way. So you're going to have to suck it up and do what we want you to do. Right? Half the time that people say compromise, that's what they mean. Right. But in the spirit of what democracy is supposed to be, democracy is supposed to be a place where there's a few things that are recognized. Number one, is that there are hundreds, thousands of different perspectives out there. And those differences in perspectives are going to come into conflict. And so instead of trying to suppress the conflict in a truly vibrant and healthy democracy, people embrace the conflict. But suggest, right, again, democracy is clear, like said, look, instead of we're going to solve our differences, we're going to solve conflict through argumentation, persuasion, discussion, collaboration, right? And yes, compromise, instead of violence, right? That's the real promise of democracy. It doesn't say that, it's not kumbaya, it's not utopia, but it's to say that this is a space where we are going to take these conflicts and we're going to try to resolve them through discourse. And you can't just kind of like say, well, we're going to agree to disagree, because you have to decide on things. Right? Yes, Emily, exactly. It also means open communications to all the stakeholders. Absolutely. And I would even go one step further than say not just open communications to all the stakeholders, but a space where all the stakeholders, right, can participate in some fashion. And are not there just to kind of show up and kind of tick a box on a day of an election day, right? But are actively engaged with, right? And I guess at some core level, I think that's what I believe. I mean, I don't. What was it like? Was it Winston Churchill, I guess, who said this? Democracy is the worst of all possible forms of government except for all the others, right? Meaning like it's not. Look, this is not. This doesn't solve our problems by saying we're a democracy. No, it just in sense it gives us a process, and it's slow. It's not easy. But I teach this class called Rhetoric, Democracy, and Advocacy, and in that class, we start off with reading this book called this guy Ian Angus. I can't believe I'm going to forget the name of the book. I usually have a copy right here on my desk, but it's not here right now. Emerging Democracies. I think it's Emerging Democracy, something like that. It'll come to me. And in there it talks about having a healthy kind of civic culture. Right. And that being actually a precondition, and like the healthier the civic culture, that's necessary for democracy. And same thing is to have actual places and spaces where people come together to deliberate outside of like the formal structures. Right. And what he means by kind of like a vibrant and active civic culture, it's a culture that operates on those kind of principles that I was just kind of talking about, like that we recognize that people are going to have different perspectives, right? And they're going to have perspectives that we don't necessarily agree with, right? And we can talk about that, right? Instead of it being, you're never supposed to talk about religion or politics at the dinner table. That kind of old school way of thinking stuff. Instead of being that, to say, no, look, we don't have to kind of, our relationships with each other aren't dependent upon us like cordoning off large sections of who we are just to kind of be nice to each other. No, but it's more like how we handle those differences, right? It's like we recognize that it's very, and that doesn't mean we don't get heated about stuff. That doesn't mean we don't get upset about it or have a really fundamental difference. It doesn't mean that people don't lose their friendships over things. No, but it just means like in the bigger picture of stuff that we want to encourage that kind of space, that we don't want to shut people down for what they believe, right? And I would give my one caveat to that, and this is Karl Popper's caveat, right, is that, you need to exclude certain things, right? You need to exclude fascists. You need to exclude authoritarians, those people who are hell-bent on destroying democracy, right? In order to have a civic culture that's tolerant of difference, you have to actually be intolerant, right? Intolerant of those people who are trying to destroy democracy, right? That doesn't mean that that they can't say what they're going to say, right? But they don't get access to the same thing. They don't get the same kind of privilege. And it's a weird thing, it calls about this, this contradiction at the heart of kind of democracy is you need that kind of stuff, right? And that goes back to, this whole idea about demagoguery, right? Is that's the one aspect of democracy that is always vulnerable. It's vulnerable to demagogues, right? Especially when you don't have an active civic culture, when you don't have a critical educational infrastructure, right? When things like kind of emotions and fear and, and lies and conspiracy theories, when that kind of stuff was able to kind of like get everyone kind of just like, you know, throw the red meat to the base and get them to act out and, you know, and vote basically, you know, like with a knee-jerk reaction. That's not active civic culture. That's one that is kind of conducive to demagoguery, right? And demagoguery it's always ripe, right, for demagogues and kind of authoritarians to take over, or to have influence at least, when we see that there's been a decline in our civic culture, right? So anyways, I think about a lot of that stuff. And so I've been thinking about that in terms of the school board election and being at that space where, you know, they elected Ron Wirtz to be the board chair. And I'll just say right off the bat, I think that was the smartest thing that they could have done. I think that was the perfect move, because he was a Republican. He was elected initially with those other, you know, with the crazies, the extremists in the board. He eventually ended up kind of like being opposed to what they were all doing, and then ran as a Democrat and ran on this stuff. He said, I could no longer be part of that. I could no longer like take part in that, because those things, the reason why I was a Republican for so long, that none of it is that, right? So there's only one party, there's only one group of people that are running against it, and that's the Democrats, is who ran as a Democrat. And, you know, like I said, this, you know, the community, the Penn Ridge area is not a, you know, a bastion of progressivism. It's a fairly conservative, like politically conservative area. And so to have somebody like him who's, you know, who's fairly respected and reasoned, gained a lot of people's respect, and appoint that person to the board was, I think a really good move. They also, you know, elected as vice president. They elected Christine Baticki as the vice president, who was a Republican, who ran with Jordan Blomgren and Ricky Chaikin, and was part of that group initially, until even she was eventually kind of excluded and marginalized by the extremists on the board. I've never much cared for her politics, right, and all that. But if you wanted to send a signal, and again, we could have disagreements over it, but if you want to send a signal to everybody, look, we're serious about wanting to kind of heal these wounds, to make this a non-toxic place to actually do the business. That's great. And I give a lot of credit to, you know, the newly elected school board candidates, you know, Chris Kaufman, right? I mean, you know, Carolyn Sciarrino, the whole group of them. I give them a lot of credit to say, like, yeah, that's what we're going to do, right? Because I know that some of those candidates got a bunch of stuff that they really would like to see happen. Like Carolyn Sciarrino, for example, was really active in the DEI stuff, was really active in kind of, you know, bringing, say, diversity, being, you know, critical perspectives to into the schools. And, you know, I could imagine there's got to be part of her saying, like, I want to get out in front. I want to do that stuff now. But pausing your, you know, putting your own kind of like maybe personal agenda in check, right? And I'm projecting here. I have no idea, you know, I didn't talk to her about it. So, but you know, but I mean, that would be my perspective. I'd be like, I'd want to do this stuff, but then say, wait, let's get back to a functioning board, right? We can actually do good things for the school district. I mean, that was a lot. And that's what the whole night felt like. Right? When people clap, everyone, you know, when the newly elected folks were getting sworn in, everybody was kind of standing up and, you know, clapping for people. It didn't feel like, yeah, in your face. It felt like, thank you. It felt like, we're here with you. We're taking this oath with you. It felt like a community. And it was amazing. You know, I'm so glad I went for that reason alone. You know, to be, you know, one of the people in the audience that was there, you know, my daughter went with us. My son was sick, unfortunately, but my daughter went with us, and, you know, we're there to be there. So that was a really good thing. I know I'm not talking about a whole bunch of stuff in the news today, but, you know, I think, I've turned off some of the news for a bit, you know, especially I'm looking at, like, okay, here's my Google News headlines right now. Let me just refresh it. So this is what, and this is kind of what in my brain is like, okay, so you have on one side, Hunter Biden hit with federal charges for evading tax, right? UNLV shooting suspect captured on video after deadly rampage. Putin will run for president again in a bid to stay in power. Oxford High School shooter Ethan Crumbley to be sentenced on Friday in Michigan. Right? New Bucks County business offering kitchen, bathroom, and closet design services. Right? Attempted break-in caught on stuff. Right? Let's see. Where's another good one? Taylor has been accused of throwing shade at her ex Joe in her Time of Person of the Year interview, right? I'm just looking at this stuff, and then if you look at what continues to happen in Gaza, right? It's horrific, and then you've got like Elise Stefanik, in these hearings, basically using it as a platform to go after these college presidents, and these college presidents being really unable to kind of like say simple things when it comes to anti-Semitism. And so now you got Elise Stefanik, this kind of like right-wing guy from up my neck of the woods up in upstate New York, which was not in my representative area, but kind of up there. Elise Stefanik, basically be able to kind of use it as an opportunity, as a political opportunity to kind of go after higher education and the kind of like the smart people and, the people with degrees and all these, stuck up academics and professionals and who are all Democrats and blah, 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 and making them sound like they're anti-Semitic. I mean, he's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, there's like all this kind of stuff going on, just filling my head with just crap. Trump coming out and basically saying, "Hey, look, when I'm elected, I'll only be a dictator for the day on day one." I'm like, what the hell's that mean? What, when you dissolve the government? I mean, whatever. I mean, I swear to God, there's so much out there that is. I just had to pause for a week, right? And I know it's the end of my semester. It's like I got so much that I got to do. So just like I can't wade in that crap this week, right? Yes, I'm going to read it and all this stuff, but I'm going to read it for my understanding and less to kind of come here and talk to you about it today, if that makes sense. And that's really why I wanted to. I wanted to spend so much time talking about the school board election, because I think it is a real turning point, and I think it's really important that everybody, if you haven't already, you take that moment of just of recognizing what a victory that was, what a victory it was in Penridge, what a victory it was in Central Bucks, what a victory it was in Southern Lehigh. And I said, wow. And to kind of take that feeling of work well done and all that, and then remember, it went the other way down in Souderton, right? It went the other way in Kutztown. These folks, the extremists, the Moms for Liberty people, as much as they've been taking so many hits lately, they're not going away. Even if it's a different brand, a different style, different names, they're not going away. But the only way we sustain it is to remember what it feels like to win, right? And to know that we can win. Anyways, one of the things that, as I said kind of earlier on in the show today, that next week on Monday, I've got a great show for you. We got Adrian King and Ashley Gillis Perkins on the show. Most of you who listen to this know who Adrian King is, right? She's the head of the Pair-Up Society. She's got 2 kids in the Penridge School District. She's worked with the Ridge Network. She was a former school board candidate, just done phenomenal work, right? She'll be on the show. And then Ashley Gillis Perkins is, she's a staff attorney for the Education Law Center. And they have brought this little complaint to the U.S. Department of Education Civil Rights Division, and we're going to be talking about this on the show on Monday. And just to give you a sense, if you haven't checked this out already, I'll give you the opening on this. The basis for this complaint is discrimination based on race that violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and discrimination based on sex that violates Title IX of the Educational Amendments Act of 1972. The discrimination includes Pennridge School District's chronic failure to take reasonable and necessary measures to address persistent and severe bullying and harassment of LGBTQ plus students and students of color, which has resulted in a hostile environment for these students. The district further creates and exacerbates this hostile environment by using discriminatory discipline policies against Black students, adopting policies that limit the expression, that limit expression, eliminating access to diverse and culturally responsive learning materials, and adopting discriminatory bathroom and sports policies. A description of discriminating acts follows below, and they go on. That's what most of the complaint is about. There's voices of students and direct testimony of people who have been victims of this discrimination. You've got the this is filed, like I say, the Education Law Center as kind of assisting with this, as being the forefront of this. You also got the NAACP of Bucks County. You got the Pair Up Societies on here, and a bunch of kind of individuals that names are blacked out for privacy reasons. So that's what we're going to be talking about on Monday, and I think it's a really good time to be having this conversation, because we can approach this. Look at this complaint of discrimination as something that is separate and distinct from the particular composition of that school board. So on number one, we can recognize there's been a significant turnover in the Pennridge School Board, right? And we also know that that former majority on the school board has been responsible for passing some of the worst policies, right? Discriminatory policies in here. But we should say is that Adrienne King, Carolyn Ciarino, a whole bunch of other folks have been talking about this kind of discrimination, systemic discrimination, and the failure of the school district to address it for longer than that most recent school board composition. We can remember when Joan Cullen, right, was the head of the school board, and who was also soft walking the same kind of policies that the extremists brought in. Right? Joan Cullen was the one who basically was saying that I'm the one who contacted Hillsdale College and thought, well, we should look at their curriculum, right? I'm the one who wanted to whitewash history first. You just have to do it in the proper way, right? That was Joan Cullen stuff. That was the former majority. So we've got the question now before this, right? This is a discrimination complaint. Number one, the Vermillion contract is ended, which is awesome. Unlike what happened in Central Bucks on their first night of their swearing in and their reorganization stuff, they got rid of some of the most discriminatory policies. I think we're going to see the same type of thing happening at Pennridge, although my guess is that the results are going to be a little bit different. We shall see. But now, with a discrimination complaint like this, with the evidence like this of systemic and ongoing discrimination happening within the school district and with this new school board, now there's an opportunity to actually do something about it, right? So that's, again, this is the opportunity for the community, right, to get behind making the district better, right, and inviting the new school board majority, right, to make it better with us, right, to resolve these long-standing problems, right, and do it in a way that is going to make our schools that much better, right? Because I heard this off comment. I couldn't even tell you. It was on social media. I think it was in Facebook someplace. Somebody making a comment along the lines of, oh, good. So, now, yeah, probably that, discrimination complaints can go away or something along those lines. And I don't even know if they were talking about this one here. And I didn't say anything. I was just thinking in my head, it's like, no, that's actually not what's going to happen. Right? This discrimination complaint was not a political document, like in the sense of like, it's not a Democrat, like it's only against Republicans. No, it's about systemic long-term discrimination. Right. And so that doesn't end long-term systemic discrimination does not end with the election of somebody different. It ends when you change the conditions that perpetuate that systemic discrimination. So I'm looking forward to seeing that move forward. Like, let's having those conversations about healing and moving into a direction that is no longer going to be, Penridge is no longer going to be a space of discrimination and hatred and abuse, but is going to be one of learning, of nurturing and caring. Pretty cool. So we shall see. So anyways, I think that's about all my voice is gonna take this morning. So I'm gonna call it on here. So we'll have on Monday, we'll have the obviously Adrian King and Ashley Gillis Perkins on the show at 7 p.m. On Out to Coop Live. Next Friday may be the last show of the season. I've got one other person that I need to get back to about an Out to Coop Live interview. I'm going to see if they want to do it before the end of the year, or if they'd rather start at the beginning of the year. But I'll let you know about that. But so next week may be the last show of the year. But I'll let you know. I'll let you know then if we're going to do one more Out to Coop Live and end on an Out to Coop Live or not. So thank you, Amy. Yes, I'll do my best to feel better. I'm going to make myself some tea and just try to get this reboot a little bit before I have to hit the grading hole once again. So. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for stopping by and spending some time with me. I appreciate you all. Want to remind everybody out there that you can help support this show by heading over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can join our growing community over on Patreon, and you can become a patron for as little as $5 a month. But you can just go over to Patreon right now and follow there and make sure. Yes, ginger and honey with apple cider, Amy. Okay, all right, I'm on it. I'm on it. All right, everybody, this is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. Want to remind you to head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. Want to remind you to help everybody else in your community when you can. I hope that this is going to be the beginning of an awesome holiday season. Let us kind of rejuvenate ourselves, kind of get up the L energy, because I got the feeling that 2024 is gonna be a trying time. So not to be sound negative and stuff, but I get that feeling. So here we go. All right, everybody, I'm out of here. I'm gonna hit the look at this. This is what happened to me before too. I've been having these like weird little things with some of the programs that I use for this too, so I have to kind of keep on going back into my one of my sources in order to get it to work in the way that it's supposed to. So we'll try it here. All right, there we go. This is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy this one. We'll talk to you next week. See you on Monday. See ya!